Their statistics indicate that in 2023, roughly 150,000 reports of sexual exploitation from adults to children.
Right.
Adults exploiting children sexually online. In 2024, the number was 546,000, of which 100,000 were AI deepfakes.
Wow.
Which means that the kid didn't send a naked photo and then get blackmailed and get extorted and get taken advantage of. These people took a regular photo of a kid, turned it into a naked photo, and then exploited the kid using that photo.
Wow.
And in 2025, we're going to finish the year at about 1 million.
Oh my gosh.
So
It's
this
just
is
so bad.
the rate of growth. Like I say, I think it's worth paying attention to the rate of change. The rate of change is significant.
Welcome to Conversations with Kristi. I'm Kristi McVie, a former WA police officer, specialist child interviewer and child abuse detective. For years, I worked on the front lines investigating child sexual abuse, where I saw the risks, the patterns, and most importantly, the ways that we can protect our kids. Now I'm here to share that knowledge with you. This podcast is all about real conversations, giving parents, carers, and educators the tools to keep their kids safe, both in person and online. Through survivor stories, expert insights, and practical advice, we'll navigate these tough topics together so you feel informed, confident, and empowered. Because when we know better, we can do better, and our kids deserve nothing less. Content warning. Some topics and conversations can be triggering for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised, as your mental health is important. Please refer to my website and the show notes for available support services. Hello and welcome back to the Conversations with Kristi podcast. I'm so excited today because I am with Ben Gillenwater all the way over in the US. And I hope I said that right, Ben, because I tell you what, sometimes our Australian accent is really interesting and we say things very different to how they're meant to be pronounced. But I'm with Ben and I reached out to Ben via TikTok because I love everything that Ben's putting out there in the socials about protecting kids. He's the family IT guy. And I can't wait to hear how you have become the family IT guy, really. So let's get straight into, talking about really your background and how you became the family IT guy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Kristi. I'm excited to talk with you. Yeah, I've been a tech guy for 30 years. I'm an IT expert, a cybersecurity expert, and I have spent most of my career protecting corporate systems and protecting government systems. And now I protect families and family systems, and I help parents understand how to keep their kids safe online. And the reason I started doing the family IT guy and focusing, which is now my full-time job, focusing on this topic, is because I became a dad and I made a bunch of mistakes that in hindsight, should have been obvious and were not. And so if I'm an expert at computer systems and then I gave my kid an iPad, I gave my kid YouTube, I did all the things that, were not smart in hindsight, but I had all the parental controls turned on, but they turned out to be not smart decisions. Exposed my kid to sexually inappropriate content, exposed my kid to things that gave him nightmares for years, exposed him to addictive mechanisms. The iPad itself was like outwardly addicting him, and he was behaving in ways that you would see an addict behave towards something. And so I learned from those things and made adjustments, took the iPad away, long story short, took away YouTube and eventually took away the whole iPad. And some of my consulting clients and friends and colleagues would come to me and ask me for advice. What should they do with their kids? And it really got me thinking, like, at first I thought, well, let me help you implement technology. Let's use tech to manage tech, which you can in some ways do that, but that's not actually the correct and complete answer. And so the more I thought about it, the more complicated I noticed that, or I found that it became. And so if it's hard for me as a tech expert, I'm like, well, then it must be really hard for people that are not tech experts. And so I took on the challenge of sharing my knowledge and my experiences and my research with parents on the internet. And I've been doing it since the beginning of 2024. Wow, almost coming up on 2 years now. And it's It's really wonderful. I'm really grateful I get to do this. I make videos and share things with people and get a lot of positive feedback that people are able to make positive changes as a result. And it's pretty wonderful.
I think that's amazing, but I can totally relate. I can totally relate to your story. The detective, the police officer giving an iPad, letting my daughter have YouTube, like the whole thing, battling the whole, addiction, the issues, and then having to wind it back and go, actually, I stuffed up here and I shouldn't have given this to you. And we don't know what we don't know, right?
Yeah.
And I was that person as well. I kind of fell into my role in what I'm doing because everyone was always coming to me going, Kristi, what do I do? What do I do? So it's kind of like similar pathways in a way that that happened. And you're so right. Like, you can't tech your way out of this. We really do need hands-on parenting to help with this situation. And I always think about my own parenting and stuff like that. If we had someone like yourself to say that, like, to give it calmly, and that's what I love about your social media is that it is very calm. It is not like you're not hyping people up, you're not giving them, for want of a better word, bullshit advice. You're just giving them calm direction, and that's all parents really want.
Yeah, my personal philosophy is, I don't like when people sort of tell me what to do. I want to know what's going on. I want the information. And I really enjoy that I think one of the most special things about being human is that we're all different and we all have our own values and our own desires and goals and things that we enjoy or don't enjoy. And so, I just put things out as very straightforward as I can and really from a place of love and a place of benefit of the doubt. And from a place of understanding that as a dad, now that I'm, I became a dad later in life, I get it finally. If I did this as a younger man, I would probably come at it from the wrong approach, and find it easier to accidentally pass judgment. But, being a parent is like the hardest thing that there is, probably.
Very much so. Gosh.
And so I respect that. And so I just take that approach. I share what I can from a place of caring and love and really hoping the best for everybody.
Yeah, with age comes wisdom, right? So, I was quite a young parent, but at the same time, I wasn't the youngest parent. And still, I look back, if I started now with a child now, I'd be a completely different parent, right? So yeah, I can totally relate to that. And, working in the police and seeing different parenting styles and what actually, I used to have this saying, and we do swear on this podcast, just so you know.
Good.
Because it's an adult parent podcast, so no kids are listening, hopefully.
Right.
But I used to just say, my job as a parent is to just make sure my kid isn't an asshole when they become an adult. And it's really important that we give them the tools to be a good adult. And so sometimes if we're not, some of these things that we give them thinking that it's the right thing to do, or we don't know better, or it just helps us in the moment, it actually doesn't help us in the long run. So everything we do, I learned very early on, if we should can start how we want to continue. So, but we make mistakes along the way. So with your own child and winding back that, the iPad, the YouTube and stuff like that, how did you go about that? Like, was there tantrums? Were you struggling as a parent, like thinking you'd done all of this stuff wrong? As parents, we judge ourselves harshly.
It's a good question. First of all, I'm very lucky that my son is very smart and reasonable and very self-reflecting. And when we gave it to him, it was with some basic expectations. Please don't, and it's hilarious saying this now, but this is the way we did it. Please don't watch the types of content that we know you're going to watch.
Yeah, right.
There's the search button. Please don't tap it and type in the things that you're going to type in as a young boy. And then so he did. And so he said, okay, that's fine. No big deal. Like our approach is, here's the expectation. If it doesn't match reality, we'll make a change. And so that's what happened. Okay, well, you're watching things that you shouldn't watch, and here's why you shouldn't watch them, and here's why they're not good for you. So what we actually did at first was we took off YouTube and we put on YouTube Kids. And I think it's kind of funny to think that my rationale at the time was very simple. It was, first of all, it's called Kids, so it must be made for kids.
Yeah, right.
And secondly, Susan, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name, so I won't mess it up, but the gal that was the CEO of YouTube at the time was a grandma. So a kid's product made by a grandma.
Yeah, so it's got to be safe.
Right? Well, and no, not personally attacking her in any way, but just those assumptions were false.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't know about the mode in YouTube Kids called approved content only mode, where you could actually pre-approve certain shows and turn off the algorithm. So anyway, so we put YouTube Kids, and it was just as bad, just in different ways. The stuff, I mean, it's really disturbing, the things that people publish to YouTube Kids. Like, there seems like intentionally messing with the minds of children, whoever it is that are publishing these things. It's really dark to think about. But nonetheless, that's what it is. And so same thing. We just basically said, hey, you know what? The stuff that, like, that's our fault actually on this one, because this platform should have been fine for you to just do whatever you want, because we told it how old you are and it's called Kids, but it's not good for you. And so he was bummed that he didn't get to have YouTube anymore, because he watched a lot of cool stuff on YouTube too, of course, you know, but he took it really well. And he, for a couple of years after, would always ask, like, could I have the iPad back? Maybe I'll get the iPad back when I'm older. And we're just like, no, like, that's going to be a while, because he gave it to him when he was 5. And yeah, I think I don't think we're going to have him have that sort of device again until his mid-teens. I don't know. I'm not sure yet, but
you just don't know. And the more you know about this stuff, the less likely you are to go, hey, okay, here you go. Here's the drug that we took away from you back when you were a young boy. Let's load you up again. Because ultimately we know that it does the same thing. It's the dopamine and all of that makes our kids. And don't worry. Like, I have done all of those things. I've talked to my daughter through them. Like, the good thing is when you have really beautiful conversations and you can explain it out to your kids, most of the time, most children are going to go, okay, you're just trying to protect me. It's about creating that, relationship that your child can actually understand why. If instead of just saying, that's it, no, you're not having it, like my parents did, they took something away and they were like, and you're like, why are you taking it away? But if you talk them through it, most kids are like, okay, I understand, I don't like it, but
Exactly. And when I was young and still as an adult, my favorite question is why. Yeah. And I've never really got any good answers when I was a kid. And so one of my things I try to do as a parent is to take that bias of mine and project it onto my parenting style and say, well, here's why. You may or may, like you said, you may not like it, but here's the reason.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think, with all of that knowledge that you have in, doing the corporate safety and now doing parental and child safety on the digital landscape, what do you think that most parents are missing? Like, I personally have a few opinions on this, because I can't, but like, we have so much more information. When my daughter got her iPad, when she was allowed on, she's now nearly 18. So 15 years ago was pretty much when she started using a device. And I wish I had known what I know now. We have all of the information now. We didn't have it back when she started, or I was oblivious to it. So what do you think parents are missing now? Like, what do you think most of them are missing?
I think the main thing is I think that most of us are missing the base understanding of the systems that we interact with on the internet, of what they do to us as adults.
Yeah.
And starting there with ourselves. And I think it's very easy to take for granted all the things that we're just used to having, and not really deeply asking why those things exist in the first place. And the core thing is to remember that we exist in an attention economy. Whether we realize it or not, well, here's what we do realize. We do realize that we don't trade money to use Instagram. Instagram is free, in air quotes. TikTok is free. ChatGPT is free. Gmail is free. Google search is free. All this stuff is free. Well, nothing's free. There's always a trade. So the trade is our attention and effectively our privacy. But if we just focus on attention is one of our core currencies as humans. And so I think that one of the powerful things of being an adult is you get to make explicit trades as you wish. For example, If I say, I know that I'm going to trade 4 hours of my time and attention today in exchange for the entertainment, dopamine drip, news, sort of fake social connection that I get on Instagram. That's great. That's fine. Because if you're intentionally making that trade, then I think that's great. So I think the trouble is that it's easily taken for granted. That are we intentionally trading our attention? And when we give and or have our attention taken, that means that the trade includes not spending our attention elsewhere. So for example, that means that I'll just use 4 hours a day as an easy number because that's one that many people can relate to. If you look at the screen time stats on your phone,
Yeah.
you might see 4 hours of Instagram. That's a common one, and really no shame. Like this is, we're all there's 5 billion of us on social media that have all fallen into the same trap. And so those 4 hours are 4 hours that you can't get back, that you didn't spend on yourself, that you didn't spend on your spouse, and that you didn't spend on your kids, right? And that's the deep, harsh reality. And so I think that's the core thing of like, well, what are we not realizing as parents, as adults? It's being very, very conscious of what are we trading for these things that seem free.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more underneath there.
Oh, I know.
Like there's a whole bunch of stuff of, are you being manipulated as a result of using these systems? Which the answer is yes. But, that's a whole nother conversation. We could spend 45 minutes just talking about that. All that stuff aside, are you intentionally making the trade with one of your most valuable currencies? And when you do that, your kids are watching. They know that screen is between you and them.
That's
right?
That's a hard hitting.
Yeah. Really. As I say this, I feel this in my body of like, because I intend no judgment when I say these things. I say these things because I've done them myself. I do them myself. This morning, I woke up. I typically wake up before my son does, and I make coffee. And while the machine's warming up, I actually don't use social media. I don't consume social media, but I do have to check the comments because I like to reply to people, as many as I can. And so I do open my social media apps and look through them for the comments every morning while I make coffee. And one thing I try to do my best is that when I hear my son's bedroom door open, I put the phone down so that when he comes out, I'm there, right? And he doesn't get used to I never want him to hesitate to say hi or to come give me a hug because it looks like I'm busy or it looks like I'm doing something that's more important than he is.
Yeah. Yep.
I've
been there. Yeah. I've been there and I've done that. Like my daughter has actually called me out on it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the beauty of creating a relationship where you can be honest and truthful with your parents, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot
that's
of
very beautiful.
It is beautiful, but it's a slap in the face kind of thing.
Yeah.
A moment where she's like, you're always looking at your phone and stuff like that. And so, and again, my job is to be online, to do the same things that you're doing. Yeah. And I haven't been intentional with it. Like there is, I think the other thing that you're pointing out to me as you're speaking, I'm thinking we entered into this social media world, this connected space of being able to talk to anyone anywhere. But we went in with basically blind, and we thought that we were connecting with others and it was all for the benefit of us, and didn't realize what's happening underneath. And we're only just starting to really get the depth of how toxic it is, because Australia is banning under 16s or delaying under 16s for having social media access. Not sure how that's going to go in a month's time, but
Right.
And so we just didn't know. The horse bolted. We thought that we were doing this great thing, and it turned into like the poison apple, basically.
Well, and I mean, I'll tell you what, when Facebook came out in 2007, it was a very different place than it is now. And so it's almost like getting the rug pulled out from under you, but so slowly that you don't even know that it's gone.
Exactly.
Right? So it started off as a place where you really did see a time-based non-algorithmic feed of the people that you knew. And there was no underlying mechanism to track everything you did and do all this stuff because they hadn't turned on the advertising business yet. Now they knew they were going to. That was the plan from the beginning. Same thing with Google. And so it was, we all very slowly stepped our way into this thing. And now if we look back, it's like, oh my gosh, we're actually so far away from where we started. And so that's why I say that, like, it's easy to feel shame when you see the number on your screen of how many hours a day you spend. But I think that there's an opportunity there that's really powerful, which is to practice vulnerability with our kids and say, you know what? You see this number on my screen here? This means that those 4 hours weren't, at least in part, spent on you. And we only get to go through this life once. And so I'm going to actually take this as an opportunity. I'm going to try to do, instead of 4 hours, next week, I'm going to try to bring it to 3.5. And I'm going to recognize that it's hard to make change and that if I go cold turkey, it's unlikely to stick. So let me make small changes, one little piece at a time. 3.5, and then 2 weeks later you can do 3.
Yeah.
And then you can show your kids, and that right there is such a powerful opportunity to help them succeed in their own journey with technology in the future. That's such a good practice, I think, to give a try to.
And it shows, well, first of all, it shows, like you said, vulnerability, but I think also as parents, like, we didn't have kids with the idea that we would, like, put something before them. When you hold that little baby in your arms, you're thinking, I just want to protect you. I just want to love you. I just want to make your life easier. And then things happen, life happens, things get in the way. We want to disassociate because life's tough, it's stressful, it's overwhelming. And believe me, I've had PTSD, so I did all of those things whilst going through that PTSD journey.
Yeah.
So no shame or blame from me. But I think one of the things that I realized really hard, like in the recent years, is that like you said, the rug got pulled out from us. It's like the frogs. If you throw the frogs in the pot and it's boiling, they'll jump out. But we're like literally in the cold bath water, and then we've been boiled. So,
That's right.
we didn't know what we were signing up for. We didn't know what they were going to do. We had no idea. And I feel betrayed in a way from social media. Because we've been conditioned and a lot of generations, like the generation now that are in their 20s, were conditioned to share every minute. They basically, everything's shown online. That they're showing their perfect reel of every moment's amazing, but not feeling amazing in themselves. It's just that we've been conditioned, and I say that to parents all the time. We've been conditioned to share our kids, share our lives, be online as much as possible, because if we're not online, then are we really living?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. These systems that we use are made by the world's best addiction experts.
Yes.
The neuroscientists and behavioral analysts that literally work side by side with the software engineers that write TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and ChatGPT and Google and all this stuff. These are the best in the world at addiction. And so, of course, we fall into the trap. And to add to it, nobody knows how to do this. This has never existed before. This is, in the last 15 years or so, give or take, parenting got a new category added to it, right? So human parenting was the same for all of time. And then now there's a new category that you have to have a computer science degree to begin to think about. And so, it's normal to have no freaking idea how to even have a crack or to even recognize what's going on in the first place.
Mm.
And so I find it kind of ironic that you and I use these systems against themselves, so we're using social media to talk about the dangers of social media.
I
for
know.
example.
Sometimes I sit there going, oh gosh, it's so like cliche, right? Hypocritical, whatever you want to say. But, we might as well, everyone else is sitting there saying what they need to say. So why not? But I just feel like you're right. We don't have, like, they do have these people. And I think if more parents realize this, how much they're working against our own parenting instincts to keep us addicted. And then we hand a phone or device to our own children and expect our children to use common sense and, maturity to, fight against it. But, well, it's not a race we can win.
Right. It's our biology is being taken advantage of. And so no matter how smart or capable or strong we think we are, it's a really, really difficult challenge. And you can tell how difficult it is if you, for example, for those listening to this right now, you're listening on a device of some sort, of course. When you're done, or even if you want to hit pause now and come back later, try to take your phone and put it in the trunk of your car and then go around for a couple hours without it.
You
See
feel
how
lost.
weird you feel. Yeah.
You feel like you've lost your arm because you keep going to pick it up. I actually did that for a week. I put my phone in a drawer and left it in a drawer.
Wow.
I think I tried really hard. I think the first day was the hardest. I kept looking for my phone, like, where's my phone? And then I was like, oh no, that's right, I put it away. It's impossible to, and then I would think, I've got to do that. I can't. I've got to now sit on my laptop and try and log into my thing because everything is, Face ID, and it's so hard. I would recommend parents do it, even just for a day, to see what their kids are dealing with if we take something away, so that we can help transition out of it.
Yeah.
Like the transition out of, having a device, like having it ripped away from you. I mean, that's what's going to happen with kids, in a couple of weeks' time in Australia. Some under 16s are going to lose their accounts overnight. And I think that we'll see kids really struggle if they don't have something to replace that.
They'll just install a VPN, say that they're in a different country, register at a different age, and get right back on.
True. Very true. There's a lot of people and kids already talking about doing that, and they're very vocal about it. And, I said when this was first proposed, and it's not something I was meant to talk about today, but when this social media ban was first proposed, I actually said on the media, on radio and on TV, that this generation isn't the one that's going to actually benefit from it. It's the generations coming up from here. If it is maintained and they stay the path with it, then it's going to be the next generation under who hasn't yet even seen a device or hasn't been born yet. That's the generation that will benefit. So we can't. And same with, like, I say this all the time, it's not the generation now, because this generation's kind of the horse is bolted, the gate's open. It's happened and kids know what they're missing out on. They're going to be upset about it. It's the next generation. If a parent's concerned, so you've done a lot of research, what you've already spoken about, kids on VPNs and stuff like that. But if a parent was concerned about their child, because one of the things that I promote is that if you give your child a device, it is your device until they're paying the bills. So for me, and I have a lot of parents push back, they're like, where's their privacy? You need to respect their privacy. I'm like, no, this child is my child to protect until they turn 18. Therefore, it is my job to check their social media, check if they've got it, check their messaging, check everything. The rule is you're under my roof, and, until you pay your own phone bill, I'm going to check your messages and I'm going to check everything. And that's a pretty policey way to talk about it. But, like, you might give it to them as a gift, but it's still yours. And that was always the precursor. Like, I'd say, hey, here's your Christmas present. Here's your new phone that, you need for school, whatever. But these are the rules of usage, kind of thing.
Yes.
And so that was my belief. But, if a parent's concerned and they haven't had that conversation, or they're worried something's going on, is there anything that they can look at in a really quick way? Because I know a lot of kids are like, don't touch my phone. Don't touch my device.
It's so hard, especially if your kid is 16, right? You want to give them their space, give them their privacy. I found, like we were discussing earlier about just parenting philosophies and stuff, I find that, like, one of the things I think about is that everything is a precedent. And so you've already established a precedent, let's say, that this is your thing, and I haven't been checking it for the past 4 years or whatever. But now I want to. There's just no easy way about it. At the end of the day, you have to change the expectation and set a new expectation. And that is, boy, that's super hard to do.
It can be quite challenging.
Yeah. And I don't know of any like non-challenging way to go about that. However, well, so there's two things. I think first comes back to the leading by example. Start with yourself first. Before you ask your kid to change your own tech habits first. Tell them you're making a change. Tell them why. Show them you're making the change. Demonstrate the fact that you can do it. If you can, and you can, right? At the end of the day, just technically speaking, because I know, again, it's not easy. It's hard. But I like the idea that we control our tech and that our tech does not control us. Now, is that true all the time? Sometimes it seems like it's the other way around. And in fact, for many people, because of the state of affairs, it is actually like sometimes people are being controlled by their tech. But at the end of the day, you can take that control back. You can choose to make the hard decision and put that phone in the drawer and bear through like, wow, I really want to go get that thing out of the drawer.
Yeah.
But first, the parent has to lead by example. And then you can say, okay, I've done it. It's been a month. Wow, look at the changes. I want this for you too. And in fact, I need you to do this with me for your own health and safety. And here's why, and here's the changes we're going to make. And we're going to craft a new agreement. And I have on my website on familyitguy.com for free, I have a family tech agreement that you can download and customize and all this. And you set the expectations. These are the new expectations. These are the expectations I have of myself because the family tech agreement is for all of us. And so we're going to change the way that we view social media. We're going to, for example, charge our phones in the common area of the home and never bring our devices into the bedrooms or bathrooms. That's a big one. It's a huge, like that one right there is so big. And really just, it's demonstrating the behaviors you want to see. I think that's the core of it. Now, could you demonstrate them and fix up your own stuff and then a month in, 6 weeks in, come back and say, okay, kids, it's time for you to change, and then you still have the fight? Absolutely.
Of course.
Are they going to just be like, oh, you're right, let's do it? No. But again, also make the changes bite-sized. Maybe help them titrate down. Maybe if they have half a dozen apps that they shouldn't have, find a way to transition, okay, you message your friends over here. We're going to have to figure out a way to transition that to an app that actually respects your privacy and doesn't have addictive algorithms built into it.
Yeah.
So really there's no easy answer, but I think all the answers start with us first. I think that's the core of it.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, everything you said, I did. Like I said at the very beginning, I think how we start is how we should continue. And if we knew better before we started, we would continue, and it would be a much easier transition than having to take something away or adjust something, later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had those conversations with my own daughter at times. Like I would say to her, and I would, I also think it's really important if we're learning something, we help share it with our kids. Like, oh, did you know that, all of our apps are listening to us basically because they want to put ads to us? Like, did you know that, have you ever noticed, because this is how I was talking to my daughter, like, have you ever noticed that, you might be talking about something and next you've got an ad on TikTok or on Instagram for it? Have you, like, here's my screen. Oh my gosh, look how much I've spent on, on social media. What's yours like? And my daughter actually has, and she goes on her own tech cleanses, I think she calls them, her tech cleanse.
Yeah.
And it's because we had these conversations. She's better at this than me. And her I don't know, she thinks that, like, she spends time with her boyfriend. I can't get hold of her. And I'm like, where are you? I have to message her boyfriend. And she's like, oh, I'm being present with my boyfriend. I'm not on my phone.
Amazing.
I know.
Wow.
I don't know how she did it. Like, honestly, no, I did talk to her a lot about these things. And I mean, she's neurodivergent as well. So she can be very, focused on different things, but she's very good at it. And her time online is way less than mine, which is really,
nice job.
It's all her. Like, she's done this herself and we did have, Sundays no one was allowed to touch their phones. It was in a drawer and we talked about it. We did everything you said. We put our phones, they were all charged in a public area in the home, no bedrooms or bathrooms, all the things you said. And she's now, and she wasn't allowed social media until a certain age. I mean, if I had have had my time again, I would have pushed it back more. I would have said, hey, not yet. Like, we're not ready yet. She was only allowed one form of social media at a time. So for 1 year, she was only allowed one social media, and then she was allowed the next one. And she had to do a tech agreement. She had to do a presentation on why she was allowed to have it. She had to do the pros and cons list and like the usage agreement, and like, this is how I'm going to use it, and these are the repercussions if I don't use it properly. And she did all of that. So I think the thing is that, well, personally, and I think you'll agree, is that we walked hand in hand through this journey, and I didn't just hand it. I made the mistakes early on, but then I learned more. I rolled it back and I went, okay, let's do this together. Like, this is why. The why question. This is why we're making these decisions. This is why we don't play this game and that app, and we're not doing this until you're 13, or we're not doing that till then. And she didn't like it at the time, but she says thank you now.
That I love that. I was just thinking that is everything I've seen, everybody I've talked to, every survey I've read indicates that the challenge is worth it, and that your kids will thank you, and that it is the right move. And, like, back to the vulnerability thing, like, hey, you know what? I made a mistake. I shouldn't have set it up that way. That's my bad. I'm sorry. This is going to be really hard. It was a mistake. And actually, we can learn from our mistakes. One of my personal values is embracing failure and showing my kid that, like, I failed. So let's have another crack at it, and let's try it this way.
Yeah, I love that.
Instead of like running away from failure or trying to pretend that there's no such thing, that's lovely. I think that's so cool that you've got to experience that, where she can look back and see the value in what you did with her. And like, that's really amazing. And yes, she's absolutely like did the stuff herself and is doing the stuff herself.
Yeah.
But based on the foundation that you helped her create, which is really awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's when we think about, we often as a parent, we don't think about what we need, all the steps that we need, all the foundations that they need to be a safe adult. Like, I'm on the cusp of her becoming an adult, her spreading her wings and flying away from home or doing whatever she's going to do. She just got her first full-time job, so it's a whole new world for me, right? Your son's much younger and you're still in the thick of it, right? But
yeah.
We don't think about these things when they're little. We don't think about, we're actually creating an adult here. We're not parenting because in the end of the day, they have to be able to survive out there in the world. And we're talking about tech here, but their lives are going to include tech. They need to be able to manage it, and they need to be able to not be manipulated by it.
Yes.
But they also need to know in themselves what's right, wrong, or otherwise, and so that they can help themselves when they get out there. So I think that's the cool thing about being a parent. It's a tough job, but if we just spent a little bit more time on it, we might actually realize how important these little lessons are. In the moment, it might feel really hard, but it's really important.
Yeah. And, I'd like to share some statistics that I've come across, because they really shaped the way that I look at this stuff. Like, really changed my entire perspective.
Okay.
So I've given lectures locally here in Idaho, and then I do some online now and stuff. And last year I was preparing for one and thinking through the concept of kids being on social media. And you hear all over the place that there's major problems with anxiety and major problems with depression. And in kids that are single digit ages, and just the numbers on these things are huge. But the hard part is that the data around anxiety and depression is not very good, because there isn't a consistent way for mental health professionals to centrally gather and record anxiety statistics and depression statistics. And so I was thinking to myself, I want to know, is it really worse than it used to be? Or is it just that we have access to the information and so it seems worse?
Yeah.
So I wanted to see trends over time. I want to see what did it used to be versus what is it now? And so we can't really track that for anxiety and depression, but it turns out that you can track the most severe outcome of anxiety and depression, which is suicide.
Yeah.
And there is, well, as crazy as it is to say or think about, there is very good data on that.
Yes.
Because death certificates are something that have been collected in a relatively standardized way globally. And the World Health Organization maintains a database, a mortality database,
Really?
that they offer on their website.
Wow.
And so I went to the database and I pulled a bunch of data and I looked at, for people in the US, ages 0 to 39. I wanted to see the trend of, it's recorded as self-inflicted death. What are the rates of change over time? And it turns out that there are very significant changes that have occurred. So the data goes back to 1951. And when I pulled it, it went up to 2021. So for example, ages 10 to 14. In 1951, the self-inflicted death rate was 1%. So of every 100 deaths that occurred, 1 was self-inflicted.
Okay.
In the 80s and 90s, that went up to about 7%. Was it 5% or 7%? Something right around there. I have this on my website. It's called article called Digital Danger Zone, and I have charts with all this data. And then from between 2007, in 2007 on the chart, the line started to go up. And by the time we got to 2019, we'd gone from, I think it was 7% to, it was almost 20%. It was roughly triple.
That's a lot.
So now, instead of 1 out of 100, it's 1 out of 5 young kids taking their own lives. And on these charts on my website, you'll see that I've mapped the release of all the major social media platforms on the charts, and you can see the chart go up. And when I saw that, first of all, I get emotional just thinking about it, but I'm sitting here at my desk looking at this data, preparing a lecture, thinking that I'm just informing parents about, well, you should use the Instagram parental controls and you should use the Snapchat parental controls. You should take a moderate approach, but there's ways you can manage it. Then I come across this data. I'm like, no, there's no moderation. This is way too big of a problem. This is a net negative in such a severe way that children are taking their own lives because they have social media in their pockets.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to correlate it to, right? Yeah, they can't switch it off. They're bringing their bullies into their bedrooms. They're bringing the algorithms into their bedrooms. These systems that were meant to addict adults are addicting kids. And interestingly, the rates of change are drastically different for people under 25 versus over 25. And at age 25, what happens roughly at age 25 is we finish developing the frontal lobe of our brain.
Yeah.
And the frontal lobe is what helps us manage a bunch of the mechanisms that are leveraged in these addictive algorithms in social media. And so for people under the age of 25, I mean, now we're even getting into young adults. This is very, very dangerous territory. They saw the same change. The chart goes up for them too. And so I just want to share that because I wish I didn't have to talk about it, but it's there. And I don't know that a lot of people know that. I did not know that. And I as a parent, and maybe you can relate as a mom, of course, and as a police officer, part of my job is to manage. I'm the head of security for my family.
Yeah.
Right. And security, in order to affect security, you have to know what the risks are. You have to study them, and then you make plans and you manage the risks. So for the US, and I think this may be the case for other countries in the world, but I haven't studied the data. But let's just say in the US anyways, I know that the top 3 causes of death for people under the age of 25 are first, automotive accidents, suicide, homicide.
Oh, wow.
For both boys and girls, the same. I would have thought that boys would have had the homicide thing and girls wouldn't, but anyways, it's the same. Okay, fine. So if we say top 3 risks of severe outcomes. Okay, automotive accidents. How do we manage that? We have good tires, good brakes, safe following distance. If it's raining, we have a further following. We wear our seatbelts. We demonstrate behaviors for our kids of how to drive safely so that when they drive, they can hopefully be safe.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we try to manage number one. Number two, suicide that correlates with social media being in the pockets of children. Don't put social media in the pockets of children. Demonstrate and lead by example of how to control your tech and not let it control you. And then homicide is, weapons safety and making sure that kids don't have access to dangerous weapons on their own and that they have training if they do have access and whatever, right? So I just wanted to share that because it's a very significant, and I don't see it talked about anywhere. I've never heard anybody else talk about it. I kind of stumbled upon this data, and I think it's worth considering.
I will definitely share your link to your website because I really loved your website. There was some really good parent-based tools and information, and you made it so simple. Like there was a 3-step thing, like to how to. I was like, oh, that's so great. Like, so for a parent that's overwhelmed, 3 steps is easy, right? So, but yeah, you're right. I don't think anyone's talking about that. I know that we know because we are in this world and we talk about it. Obviously from my perspective, I saw an increase in online child exploitation and child abuse material and the sharing of that stuff. But the real point is that social media and online it's not something we can manage our way through if we don't. We have to be hands-on with it. We can't just hand over a device and social media and go, you're going to be safe, because there is no safety. I mean, one of the things that I saw is, we know that our kids get bullied and they can't get away from bullying. We know that they are exposed to adult content and, indecent content and stuff like that. We can't, it's almost impossible to keep it out of their hands because it's everywhere and it's pushed at them. If you don't want your kids, if you don't think your child is ready to see that, then don't hand them a device that can give it to them.
I love that. I say something very similar. I really appreciate that. I mean, the way I put it even more bluntly is like, if they're not ready for porn, then don't give them YouTube, social media, and unfiltered internet access. You have to give them
control that.
Yeah, like even though technology is not the answer, you should use filtering mechanisms that are built into all the devices. So Android, you have Google Family Link. iPhone, you have the screen time controls. And there's similar things for Windows and Chromebook and stuff. And you should use those. In my opinion, you really should use those. And for young kids, you can take what's called a whitelist approach. In the tech industry, we call it a whitelist approach, which means you start with a blank slate. You have no access to anything. And then as your parent, I add individual apps, websites, whatever it might be, and you only have access to those things. Now, at some point as you mature, you can change to a blacklist approach. That means that you have everything except for the following.
Whatever you choose, yeah.
I
like that. I like that idea a lot. And that's why I think parents are going to like the Bark phone, or we don't have that in Australia, but, like the old flip phones where they don't have access to the internet, or my daughter had a Space Talk watch, which was like literally all she could do was text. Like she would, very minimal amounts of information, and she could call me. That's how she started with a device. And then, I basically blocked everything, and she was only allowed certain things with whatever I decided. And a lot of the things were not appropriate. So, but it's only through my work that I was able to work that out. And it's only through my knowledge of working in these spaces that I was like, wow, if I hadn't have seen it, I probably wouldn't have known. And I would have done what most parents do, is think that it's safe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, I'm going to change my website soon, because although I've got it set into 3 of these pillars, I've actually now boiled it further down to 2.
That's
and
good.
So because I think really this simple is good, like if you can, the fewer things to think about, the better. And so we've covered the first one. That's the algorithms. And algorithm is a technical term, but I call it anything with a bottomless feed. If you scroll and it never stops, that's a red flag. That correlates to the suicide statistics. It correlates to all the mental health problems. The second problem is online chat.
Yes.
That ties directly into your work. And the statistics are also really, really bad. In the US, there's a group that the federal government funds that's called the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
Knick-knack.
Yeah, great stuff. Really good work. They coordinate with the FBI and a bunch of police departments, and they actually have a service called the Take It Down service, and they'll work with the big tech companies to get your photos removed if somebody has shared photos of you. Their statistics indicate that in 2023, and I'm trying to remember the exact number, roughly 150,000 reports of sexual exploitation from adults to children.
Right.
Adults exploiting children sexually online. Roughly 150,000 reports in 2023. In 2024, the number was 546,000, of which 100,000 were AI deepfakes.
Wow.
Which means that the kid didn't send a naked photo and then get blackmailed and get extorted and get taken advantage of. These people took a regular photo of a kid, turned it into a naked photo, and then exploited the kid using that photo.
Wow.
And in 2025, we're going to finish the year at about 1 million.
Oh my gosh.
So
It's
this
just
is
so bad.
the rate of growth. Like I say, I think it's worth paying attention to the rate of change. The rate of change is significant. And so that's why those are the two problems to focus on: addictive algorithms, AKA bottomless feeds, social media, and anonymous online chat. And the anonymous online chat that's the chat function in the games. That's the DM, the direct message function in the social media apps.
Yep.
That's what that is. And that is where the folks that you used to arrest, might go and try to find kids in person.
Yes.
Now, speaking of VPNs, they go on a VPN, they register on Roblox, they register on Instagram, they register on Snapchat, and they're doing like a full scale. Some of them are automated. There's even entire criminal networks now. So most of the world's gangs, like organized criminal networks, do this for blackmail, for financial purposes. They'll blackmail kids in exchange for money.
Yeah.
And
we've got a lot of that happening here.
Yeah, and it's really, the stuff that I've learned is just terrible, but we have to know about it. It's to the effect that some of these networks have women, attractive looking women, and they're probably not even doing it by choice, but I don't know, standing in front of green screens that will get on a video call with a teenage boy and say, yeah, I am an attractive girl. This is real.
Yeah.
Here's a naked photo of me. Go ahead and send one back.
Yeah.
Every teenage, who's not going to fall for that? That's your biology is meant to react to that.
They're biohacking kids' defenses. We can sit there and say, we can sit there and say, don't talk to strangers, but you're a teenage boy, you're going through puberty, you might not be feeling very good about yourself right now. And this hot young woman comes into your DMs and says, hey, I'll send you a photo if you send me one of you. I mean, literally, they've got I don't know any boy who wouldn't.
I mean, yeah. And so that's why it happens so much. And so it's just an enormous problem. And it sucks because, well, aside from the obvious reasons, I mean, there's also mostly great things happening on these chat systems. You can make friends, you can share hobbies, you can learn things. And then these predators are really ruining it at scale and hunting for kids. And they do it through online chat. And so the unfortunate reality is that, and let me know if you agree, the other police officers and psychologists that I've spoken with have told me that their impression is if you put a kid on an online chat system, they will, with 100% certainty, be targeted by predators. Now, they may not fall victim, but they will be targeted and most likely contacted by predators.
Yeah. Yeah. My own daughter has had it. She just knew enough to know that was if they're slipping into the DMs and they're approaching your child and, your child, I mean, my daughter has done all of the things and she's, she even says, hey, mum, look, should I play with them? And I'm like, no, you should not. Just block and report. And I'm like, But I mean, she was about 15 at this age. But, you know, like all kids will get approached, all children.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it depends
It
on, you know, like are you supervising? Have you put restrictions in place? Do they know enough about what's, you know, extorters, sextorters, you know, all of these predators? And it's not just sextorters or financial gain. Some of them are there to actually obtain children's photos for the purpose of selling them online, sharing them on the dark web to gain a relationship with children. You know, I talk about the different types of online abuse, and, you know, they all start with a predator approaching a child.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, it's the US is the biggest consumer. Apparently 62% of the demand is inside the United States.
Look, Australia is not immune to it either. We have a large network of people in Australia who are consuming child abuse material, exploitation material, and they also we have a large network of people who get live material from places like the Philippines. So it's horrendous, and it's a not something that we can police out of. We actually need to, as parents, you know, work with police and work with these systems. It's not about, and I get so many, I made a comment about Roblox on my social media that it's not for kids. And, you know, like I've played Roblox because that was what my job was, like, to sit and learn about it, right?
Yeah.
And I get people like, you can't tell me what's good for my child or not. And I think that's the thing. Like, people get so defensive about someone pointing out that maybe what they're allowing isn't actually really good for their kids. I'd imagine maybe,
Right.
I don't know if you don't get those critics, right? But I get the critics
I
because,
do too.
yeah, they don't want to be told because it's, you know, imagine the fight that they have to have with their child if they have to take action.
Yeah. Well, and of course they're like, hey, look, you know, there's 112 million people that play Roblox every day. 40 million of them are under 13. So my kid's on there, they're playing a safe game. You know, they're fine. You know, the fact of the matter is, whether we like it or not, it's a high risk activity. If you put a kid on Roblox, it's high risk. I mean, because at that point, it's like, hey, look, we're not even if we're not telling anybody what to do, we're just letting you know it's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
You could drop your kid in the wrong parts of New York City on their own at night, and then, hey, see you later. You know,
Yeah.
hope you come back in one piece.
Literally what they're doing. I made the comment the other day, and you might like this one, because I said, if you were at a playground and the playground was full of kids, right, and then an adult male came in and started playing with the kids, would you sit and allow that for the next hour or 20 minutes or whatever? Would you sit there and just allow an adult male or an older teenager come and play with 4 and 5-year-olds or 10-year-olds? No, you
Yeah.
wouldn't. You would pull your kid out, or you would tell them to go away. Yet
Yeah.
we allow this in online spaces. It just doesn't make sense.
Right. Right. And it's really, I think a big part is that our DNA doesn't know how to do this.
Yeah. You pointed
Right.
that out before.
We're not built to handle this stuff. And, you know, I don't know what it was like in previous generations. I know what it's like now. And I know that a lot of people are having a rough time. A lot of people are really financially stressed. You know, you've got a lot of homes in which both parents have to work and they have to be gone all the time.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of homes where it's single parent homes. And I grew up in one of those, you know, and it's a tough time. It's a high stress time. Nobody's having an easy go at it. And it seems like it's getting harder day by day. Things are getting more expensive. Things are getting more stressful. People are losing their jobs. And it's like, now we got to worry about all this.
I know.
You know, it's,
I know.
yeah,
I have a lot of parents say the same thing. Like, they're just like, well, you know, it's just too much to deal with, too much to do. So I guess to finish up and wrap up, what would you, to balance that, to try and balance all of this out? You know, you're a parent, you're struggling, right? And you don't know what to do. You know that it's not great, and you're just trying to make it work. Is there any key things that you think parents should focus on? Just maybe one thing or two things that they can change today, or talk with their child about today, that might make a big difference.
So aside from the stuff that we've spoken about already, I think it's good to think about the importance of education. And that's why consuming content like yours and consuming content like mine and sharing that content with our kids I've had some really surprising positive feedback from parents that have said they've taken my videos that I made for parents and shown them to their kids as young as, 7. I've actually, oddly enough, had a number of people specifically say that age 7, and that their kids get it and totally digest it and actually go like, oh, wow, that's a good point. Let me not play Roblox anymore. Or now I know when somebody reaches out to me, I can be skeptical, and very impressive. I mean, kids, I don't give kids enough credit.
They're pretty amazing, really.
Yeah. And so education, unfortunately, expose them to the reality of the situation. If they have access to these things, they have to know.
Have to.
And, in the US, we have many states have an Internet Crimes Against Children task force, and the internet, they're called ICAC. Many of the ICAC groups put on training and education events for the community. So, look up and if they don't, call them and ask them, where can I go to learn? Where are events? They may know. I really suggest taking your kids to, many police departments do events like this. Bring your kids, let them hear somebody else tell them. Let them hear a police officer in a uniform say, here's what's going on. Like this, I think that would be a really good move.
Yeah, and I have been that police officer, and I have been that presenter in a school in Australia. Like the AFP has a Think You Know program, which is similar to the ICAC program. We have the e-safety commissioner who has heaps of information. We've got personal presenters who go to schools. I think what I found difficult was when the schools put on something, parents don't show. Like it's the parents that don't need the information that turn up, and the ones that don't are the ones that need it, right? So I think from I don't know about your stuff, but I think also, I used to say to my daughter, if I heard something or something happened at work, I'd be like, what happened today? This happened to this child. Have you ever seen or heard anything like that happen to your friends? Or, I call them side door conversations where you're like, what could kids do if, or has any of your friends ever had this happen? I'm not making it about my child. I'm just making sure they know the information and then if she was to say to me, oh yeah, that's actually happened to my friend Sienna, I'd be like, now I know she knows about it. Now I know I need to teach about it.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And at the end of the day, if there's nothing going on in your area, if you have the capacity, you could try to organize it yourself. I've actually got a video that I just did with my colleague Mary, where she talks about how she organized her community, and she got her school principals to actually bring in. So she organized the whole thing. She brought in police officers. She brought in psychologists. The principals facilitated having school presentations. So sometimes you got to make it happen yourself, but education is where it starts. I think, that's a really good area to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. And not just educating yourself. And sometimes I get parents like, I don't know how to talk about this stuff. And I'm like, well, say, I listened to a podcast today with this guy from the US or, Kristi from Australia. And this is what they said. And hey, I didn't realize, like, I think I might have stuffed up a bit. Like, what do you think? You're like you said, that 7-year-old onwards, I think our kids can process and they have the capacity. You don't have to overwhelm them with information, but you can say, I think I might have stuffed up a bit here. Like, do you have any thoughts on this? And I think it's helping them make critical decisions, helping them think through like their own usage, their own issues. Because I have had 7-year-olds come to me, 8-year-olds come to me and say, I saw something online that is making me feel really sick. I can't sleep at night. I don't know. I can't talk to my parents because they'll take my device away.
Yeah.
And that's I guess from your point, I'd imagine you say the same, is that we have to be approachable and we need to have a calm reaction, because if we're going to explode and start yelling and blaming, then they're just not going to feel safe.
That's so true. I agree. And really it's not only important for the first time, but it's probably going to happen more than once.
Yeah, it does.
And so you want them to be capable of coming back to you every time. And so when you do the family tech agreement, you can include a free pass. If you get in trouble, if you make a mistake, you're not in trouble. Come to me. I'll help you. I will react calmly. I will help you. And I think that's a big one.
I will add, I had a moment when my daughter saw porn at 10 and she came and told me. So she Googled, like she's doing, puberty education, and she Googled sex. And I thought it was all locked down. I thought it was all locked down. No, it was not. And she saw porn and she came and told me about it. And I remember, and so this is something I tell parents all the time. If you can't control your face and your reaction, just say, that's really important. I really want to like sit and talk to you about this. I just need to go to the toilet for a minute, and just go to the toilet and freak out in the toilet. So you give yourself a moment to just chill out, because if you can't control yourself, just give yourself like a pass to go and like scream into a pillow or something like that. Because I remember having to say that to my daughter, because I was sitting there like freaking out. My face was not controlled. I can do it with anyone else's child, but not my own.
Right.
And she'd asked me to sit down, and I just said, I just need to go to the toilet. I thank you so much for telling me. Like, I just had the thing in my head. Thank you so much for telling me. That's really important. I'm just going to go to the toilet, and then we're going to have a sit down and talk about it. And I went off and screamed into a pillow, because I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Oh my God. So yeah, I think that's, parenting's not easy. I think you and I both agree, like you do your best, and when you know better, you can do better.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's been an amazing chat. I said it would be about 45 minutes. We've gone 1 hour and 8 minutes now. So
Nice.
I could talk to you all day. I love you. I love how calm you are. Like, you're just so, like, everyone's on this journey. We're all trying our best. Like, let's try and do it, and I love that. So Ben, just share with everyone how they can find you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think try my website first, familyitguy.com. And then at the bottom, I've got links to my YouTube and my Instagram, and I've got a podcast. And I'm, like you're saying, ironically on all the channels that we talk about, because I want to be where everybody is.
Yeah.
So yeah, feel free. I've got 99% of what I do is free. I'm just here to help. So
you're amazing. Thank you so much for having a chat. And I think we should do this again. We should maybe dive into another topic, but I'm sure parents will definitely get a lot from this. So thank you.
I'd love to. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Education empowers children, strengthens parents, and most importantly, prevents abuse. That's why I do this work, and that's why you're here. So truly, thank you. If you'd like more support or resources, follow me on social media under Kristi McVie or Cape-AU, where you'll find all the links in the show notes. You can also grab a copy of my book, Operation KidSafe, A Detective's Guide to Child Abuse Prevention, at www.cape-au.com, where you'll find further resources and self-paced courses to help you in this journey of protecting your kids. If you found this episode valuable, please take a moment to leave a review or share it with someone important. Your support helps more parents and caregivers discover this important information and take action to keep kids safe. Check the show notes for extra links and support, and most importantly, thank you for showing up and taking action to protect your kids. See you next time.